go in 3, 2, 1, and...
Hi, Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor Gang. It's Tuesday of some year, and history will show that either today or tomorrow, but maybe today, George Biden is going to announce his pick for vice president.
Good old George.
And to begin that process, I'm going to announce our candidates for VP, starting with, from London, Frank Radice.
My fellow Americans and Brits and aliens, I would just like to say thank you, Steve, for inviting me to be a part of the Gangsters group.
You know, I love the way that your fake Southern accent lurches in and out in mid-sentence.
Yeah,
it reminds me of
Madonna trying to be Brit.
Okay, and we'll come back to you for your big announcement. Did we just lose somebody?
No, we did. Michael.
Yeah. Well, we're going to continue, and hopefully he can dial back in.
Seems that every week somebody disappears and then reappears.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, that was you last time. Actually.
Machine crashes. Keith Teare, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be on the gang.
Brent Leary, welcome.
I'm here.
He's the guy who's got his own fan with him.
I want you to look deeply into the fan. Stare into the fan.
Is that the trigger for turning it on or off?
No, the trigger is
What?
when I see that you guys are really staring deeply, then I start asking penetrating questions.
So some people have a dog for emotional needs. Brent has a fan.
An
It's
emotional
nice to have a fan. Having a fan is a good thing.
It's the only
should
fan
all
I
have a
have,
fan.
so yeah.
Listen, we're in the middle of the third day of a terrible heat wave here in London. So I got to say, because most Brits don't have air conditioners, I wish I had a fan.
Wow. You got a fan here, Frank.
You know what? And I'm your fan too, man. And Brent, I'm there. I'm right there with you. And you, Denis, as well. Keith, Steve, and Tina, and of course Michael if he ever comes back.
And if he doesn't, then you don't care?
No, I do care deeply.
Okay, I assume you misspoke. Denis, that would be Denis Pombriant. Welcome, Denis.
Yes, Steve. After the announcement today, we're all going to go out on the lawn and we're going to play touch football. And we're going to play by my rules. You know why?
Because it's your football?
Because it's my ball. That's why.
This is a Von Meter retrospective.
There you go.
Boy,
to
did
these
he
British ears, it sounded like an attempted Boston accent, but I could be wrong.
Well, you would be
That would
right.
be-
Yeah, no, you'd be there. You were right there.
Okay, so Brent, if you can raise your voice level just slightly, that would be helpful.
You want me to raise my voice level?
Yeah, no, or either that or lean into the mic.
How about now?
Very
That's
good.
great. I can't see the fan.
Oh, yeah.
Because that looks real comfortable too, man.
Too bad it's got extra sex appeal.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll try in the back channel to resuscitate Michael.
He'll be back soon.
Okay, great. And in the meantime, well, this is an exciting day for a number of reasons. We named the last show, which was recorded about a week and a half ago, to Gillmor Gang TikToks. And Brent then reminded me that we didn't talk about TikTok at all on that show.
Nope.
So this time we're not going to call it TikToks, and we're going to talk only about TikTok.
No.
No, that would be boring.
Okay,
That would be
so there's Michael.
Hey, welcome back, Michael. I love that.
Michael,
That's
Can you hear us, Mike?
All right.
The viewers are getting a great view of Michael trying to figure out his camera and microphone.
Michael, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You can speak up a little bit.
All right.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.
So I was just saying that we're going to be talking only about TikTok today. So
Okay.
who wants to start?
I can start.
No, that would be wrong. Because you
Are you
actually have
bidding?
something to say about it. So
Okay.
go ahead.
I won't
Keith.
start. Well, the only reason I would volunteer is because I live in a family where one family member over the recent months has become addicted to TikTok, which is my wife. And those of you who don't know my wife, she's an English lit major who normally reads novels. And TikTok has replaced hours every day that used to be reserved for novels. And therefore, it is my conclusion that TikTok is an incredibly successful, well-orchestrated user interface that appeals massively to a very wide swathe of Americans from very young to my wife's age. It was her birthday on the 9th, 2 days ago, and she's in her 50s. So it feels to me as if the first thing to say about TikTok is it's the first social media app that has broken through the Facebook, Twitter, wall to become successful, ubiquitous, and appealing. And it was designed and made in China, so that's another first, which I think is probably symbolic of the future, where more and more things we use are not made in the USA. And I see the whole Trump shenanigans as a sideshow in a way, not the main story. It feels as if the main story is non-US social media apps can become worth billions and billions of dollars. And like Lee, the Chinese Tesla, which floated on NASDAQ last week, probably can raise billions of dollars from Americans who can make money by investing in them, which is symbolic of our global world. So so my first remarks are TikTok's
Okay,
amazing.
all right. So that's almost too much about TikTok, but
No,
does anybody-
there's more. There's more. And by the way, we did talk about it a little bit, Brent. We talked about the fact that Trump wanted to extort some money from whoever made the deal to buy TikTok. I think that was the only part of the conversation that we had. It kind of flew over like a flock of wild geese, and then it didn't catch. But I think that's a really an important part of this story. I also think that the diversionary tactic that Trump has turned it into is also another interesting part of this story. And the other thing is, wasn't there a science fiction movie where somebody had created a video app that made people, hypnotized everybody that used it, and it became the biggest, most powerful app? It seems to me it was a John Carpenter movie called They Live.
If you drop the app bit, it was Stepford Wives.
That too. I mean, it's really interesting. Every aspect of what TikTok has become, and the kinds of people who are using it. I know when I started watching it for the first time, I got on and I was watching it, and I finally said, well, you know what, this is just not for me, because there's too many kids on it. I don't know. But I was tempted to go back and watch it because there was some great creative stuff on it. There's no doubt that there's some incredible creative video manipulation being done on TikTok. And then I started noticing that the as you were saying, Keith, the age group of the people that were using it, it started to go up. And then there was a whole lot of stuff I noticed of parents with their kids doing things on TikTok. So just a tremendous amount of it. So as you were saying, and I agree 100%, it seems to have not only done what Facebook and Twitter did, but did it faster, and they're superseding it.
One interesting
By the
side
way-
note is that Twitter had the inklings of TikTok in something called Vine, and instead of investing in it, they dropped it. But they had the start of it.
They
Yeah,
killed
that's
it.
a whole other story. Jack Dorsey this week did a mea culpa on all the things Twitter has done wrong, and I think that was one of them.
Yeah.
Well, I contacted him about Vine at the time, basically begging him to reconsider, and he said he would talk to them, but obviously he didn't reconsider.
You were a big proponent of Vine. I remember, Steve. You talked about it.
One of our daughters learned Final Cut Pro on Vine and became somewhat viral on the platform. So it was like, here's the future. Oh no, wait a minute. So that was unfortunate. Twitter has done this, with track and various other features over the years, which is get some traction with something and then immediately withdraw it or put it behind a firewall where only developers can get it for a price that they haven't got the ability to pay for it.
And we had a maker community, which was interesting.
A maker community?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is about.
I would wonder though if something like this can replace as time goes on things like Twitter and create a situation where everything becomes real audio and video as opposed to text-based, which I just feels like that could happen to me. I wonder if that's something that anyone else has thought about. Keith, it seems like, I'm sorry, Michael, what were you saying?
No, I was going to say people have been proposing that since the 80s, since media production began to drift into the desktop. People have been looking for avatars to replace text chat, and they never quite do. And I don't know if it's completely because the avatars aren't good enough or because the video isn't good enough. I think that there is a fundamental appeal to communicating by text. So I don't expect anything to supplant text-based Twitter.
Brent, what do you think?
I don't know. I have a suspicion that if a recent acquisition possibility takes place, TikTok kind of dies. Because the spirit of what TikTok is might not survive the acquisition if it takes place.
Yeah. That rings true to me.
Dennis, do you agree?
I don't know. I don't know a lot about TikTok. I'll give you a couple of ideas. Number one, I think social media is at a low point and probably going to go lower in the amount of public trust it has. And I think until public trust gets fixed, nobody's going to do particularly well. I could see TikTok or something like TikTok supplanting Twitter or Facebook, but not necessarily going further than them. I did also want to comment on something Keith said about globalization and what was it, social media or technology products in general not being made in the United States?
Well, most Chinese companies listing on the NASDAQ, there was a new one last week, which is Li Autos, Li Autos, which raised 1.1 billion on the NASDAQ.
Yeah.
So it's just symptomatic of the fact that we don't live in a nation state world from a financial point of view anymore.
Don't disagree with that, but my mind goes back to the 1980s when Japanese car makers were flooding the market with better products, and an accommodation was reached that basically split the market with Japanese car companies and American car companies, and forced Japanese car companies to set up operations in the United States. Some of the biggest car makers in the United States now are owned by foreign car companies. For example, the largest BMW factory in the world is in South Carolina, not Stuttgart. And you see the same thing. Honda's been made in Marysville, Ohio, and for decades now. and it goes on and on. So I'm looking for a bit of reaction or retrenchment by the government in the tech sector, because I think the tech sector has enough juice in Washington to get its way on that. So I think you'll see the market split, and we'll see some Chinese companies in here, but I don't think they're going to take over. Not that that was ever your assertion.
I was
So
wondering. I'm sorry. Something that you said there, Dennis. I feel I'm ambivalent about. And that is that the trust in social media is declining. I would posit that the trust in social media is declining in a certain demographic, but not overall. It's indicative of. It's funny. I was watching one of those Trump rally pieces of video where the reporter went out and was interviewing the supporters of Trump, many of whom, and I think this is really something that's true. Many of whom said that they were getting the majority of their news from Twitter and Facebook. So I'm wondering if that number isn't somewhat the same as the as sort of, the people who support Trump. So it's maybe a 35% margin. I don't know. It just seems to me that, and I also wonder, and I question, Keith, is social media gonna get regulated? Anyway, those are my.
Well, can I just say, Frank?
Sorry,
Frank, can I just say that that's a very astute observation, and the amount of trust will be different, I think, if you do a longitudinal survey and test demographic groups. But I think the demographic groups that you want to sell to aren't 10-year-olds, and
yeah.
I think the issue
number, they're not going to be Trump supporters, because they don't have a lot of discretionary spending. A lot of them.
The issue with trusting a platform like Facebook or Twitter is complicated by the fact that neither of them are publishers or authors. They are all pass-through platforms. And when people say they get their news from Facebook or Twitter, they're getting their news from some subset that they've tuned into, or alternatively that has tuned into them, depending on the algorithm. So,
but are they really getting news? Are they really
getting
news? Or are they actually getting reinforcement of their opinions?
Well, of course they're getting reinforcement.
They're not getting news. They're just getting fodder for them to share what they think already.
But the broader point Michael's making is that what we're really measuring is trust in each other as human beings across platforms. We, the human race, are probably the least trusting of other human beings we've ever been. And I agree with Dennis's underlying point there, where that trust between humans, there's assumed danger everywhere, not assumed good stuff. And it's beware, look out, look over your shoulder, don't believe. All the messaging is lack of trust.
Stranger danger.
Stranger danger. And as human beings, we're prone to fear. And I think Trump preys on fear. He preys on this view of the world as being national. Globalization is his enemy, but trust is his enemy as well. And I think if you're an opponent of Trump, you have to be for trust and against narrow nationalism, because those are the things he stands for.
Can I post up a thing that just a survey result that literally just hit the presses?
Yes.
It looks like
on exactly what you were talking about. I don't know if you want to. Can everybody see it? Okay. This is why I'm still pessimistic about the turnout for this. This is an amazing kind of level of stats. Survey Monkey and NBC did this thing about how confident are you in the election results. Look at it's not the Republicans. Okay, they're 3-1, very not confident at all. But look at the independents. They're twice as likely not to feel comfortable or confident as they are to be very confident. The only group of folks here that is net confident is the Democrats, like very confident to not at all confident. I mean, and we're calling at the beginning of the mash of stuff that's going to hit us. And we're already starting off with these stats. It's going to get so bad by the time we actually vote. These numbers may even.
What do you mean by we're at the beginning of a mash of stuff? How much stuff do we need?
Oh, it's going to get worse because as these polls, if Trump is still in the same position now as he is coming into like the final stretch, he's going to be throwing the kitchen sink at all this. I mean, if we think he's doing it now, I have to believe that it's not even a fraction of what it's going to be like getting close to November.
You're giving me a good reason to disagree with you, so I'll do so.
Okay.
Basically, I think that every day, yesterday, for the first time, I did not watch the Trump quote press conference, either live or on tape or any of the analysis of it. And the reason for that is that I'm sick to death of it to begin with. Basically, I think he's run out of arrows. I don't think that he's got much more that he can actually get ratings with in terms of, vehemence and craziness and every other kind of thing that he's been dishing out. So I'm not so sure. I think that it's very possible that these numbers that are out there now, about a 5 to 7 point spread, are real and they're not going to move.
I agree. The numbers are not going to move.
I've been saying that. Yeah.
The question is, are the people who hold these opinions going to get to express them at the ballot box? That's the question. I don't think the polls are going to fluctuate at all. It's all a question of election shenanigans. And when people say they don't have confidence the election will be held fairly, it's a combination of two things. On the Trump side, he keeps telling them it won't be fair. And on the other side, we suspect that his telling people that the election won't be fair will in itself inherently make it unfair.
And that's accurate. Of course it's going to be unfair. It's unfair on both sides.
I think that
what part of voter suppression is fair?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Bingo. There's no doubt that but I also think that, stuck in the middle of all of that is if people think that it's going to be unfair, will they just not vote?
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of hidden Trump non-vote. And honestly, I think that there's too much media being focused on this now for those kinds of pools of non-voters to really not surface. I mean, I just think that how many bottles of beer are we at? 85.
84.
85. Of course, the one there still is something to look forward to, and that's what you started this whole show with, Steve. Are we going to see over your shoulder Biden come out and name his vice presidential pick, and is that going to move the conversation to a different place for a little while? I don't think anything moves the conversation to a different place for a long time anymore. It moves it for a nanosecond.
Any of the finalists, as they're defined by the leaks, they're all great picks. I mean, all 10 or 15 of them are terrific. So,
as I said before, he could run with a ham sandwich. It would not change my opinion whatsoever. I think you're right. I think the 15 are great, but do they actually matter to the end result at this point? I don't know.
No, I don't. They may not, Brent, but I think what they might do is, as I said, make the conversation move into a different direction for a short period of time.
It will give people something to talk about for a week.
Well, but then Trump will do something like by the time Biden announces whoever it is, Trump will have done something that will almost cover it up. I mean, it won't cover it up completely, but I think it cuts down the talk cycle.
Well, look, he tried big time with these what he called the bills that he signed, none of which was a bill. only one of which was an actual executive document. The other three were memos, and I don't think any one of them had any teeth at all. I mean,
None of them did.
It's funny too because
I mean, I disagree
sure,
with that. I disagree with
How
that.
so?
I mean, well, first of all, he's negotiating to try and get Congress to come in with some numbers so that he can take credit for it. That's what he's doing.
Well, but I think that he was negotiating with his own people to get Congress to stalemate so he could jump in and do something that would get him all the press.
I know, but it's not going to get him a lot of press, and nobody really cares.
He's painted himself into a corner at this point.
Yes.
All
Yes.
Nancy Pelosi has to do is say, well, President took care of it. Let's see how it goes.
That's right. And the other thing is that don't think that there aren't people out there who actually believe that he did take care of it.
Of course there are, but that's baked in. He's got a base, and it is south of 40%, and you can't get it higher than 40%. And among the 40%, not everyone believes him. A lot of them know he's full of air, and just go along with it anyway for their own private agenda.
There's other stuff that's just off the screen that we should take into account. For example, there was a story in I want to say the Washington Post today about Kentucky and about how fired up and angry Mitch McConnell's voters are. There's a whole side of this that we're not paying attention to very much, and it is that there are 22 Republican senators up for re-election who are taking heat at home, and they can only take so much heat for so long. We've got 85 bottles of beer on the wall. They've got a bias for coming back and doing something. Maybe not all of them, but all you need is 5 or 10 Republican votes in the Senate to get the Senate to go along. And then what does Trump do? What does Trump do?
Are you saying Susan Collins is troubled and concerned? That's what's
she should be.
You bet. You're right, but what does Trump do? I mean, actually, isn't it? It's only 4 anyway that really matter.
You'd ideally like a veto-proof majority in both houses. That would seal Trump's fate.
So it's basically a landslide, and everyone's going to get buried under the landslide unless they separate from him. And they're not going to separate from him because it's too scary for them. That would be the unknown. So they're going to be relatively quiet, and the landslides are going to bury them. And the only issue is there enough soil to bury all of them, or only some of them?
Yes, and I think at this stage, it's practically impossible for them to separate. They can be tied back to him with so much history, going back to the impeachment vote, going beyond that to the tax cut vote, to the Medicare vote. They are lashed to the mast of his sinking ship, and they can try and cut those bonds, but they will not cut.
No, it's interesting that so far there's. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's only 2 senators that are making any sort of negative sounds right now, and you aren't even hearing from Mitt Romney. I was just wondering today, what the heck happened to him?
Yeah,
Isn't there one Democratic senator whose seat is threatened by a Republican win? I've forgotten which one it is now.
Alabama, Doug Jones.
Doug Jones, yes.
Is that just a unique story, or is there?
He's not going to win.
Seems weird.
It was a unique story that he won, and that was because he ran against somebody who had a lot of trouble. Now he's not running.
He ran against an alleged child molester, so he had a little advantage that he doesn't have.
Yeah. No, now he's running against a former Auburn head coach, so he can forget it. Football is king down here. That ain't gonna happen.
Might be the only football they get.
My theory is that the Senate race is not going to be enough to maintain the margins of what Keith, I guess, calls a landslide. I don't believe this is going to be a landslide. I think it's going to be like a 3-point win.
For the president or for the Senate?
in general, I think it's going to be about a 3-point win in the states that matter in the electoral college.
Well, things always tighten up.
And
Yeah,
by the way,
exactly.
if that ends up being true, Steve, my observation is just how astonishing it is that that many people could still vote for Trump and or his allies after everything that we've seen. It's just astonishing to me.
I saw this thing. It was on one of these networks where they were looking at presidential elections over the decades, and like Jimmy Carter lost in a electoral college landslide, but he still got 40 or 41% of the vote. Or I say Jimmy Carter, and then Ronald Reagan beat Mondale by like almost the same figures. The loser usually gets about 39 or 40% at the least. So he's not doing anything any different than anybody else is right now. The problem is, or if you want to call it a problem, I kind of look at it like that. We're in a situation where it comes down to states. It doesn't come down to the popular vote. So he can actually pull this off again. I mean, I don't want to see it, but he could.
Well, that's
why the VP choice is really important. The VP choice, if it's done well, should pick somebody who is a guerrilla war fighter, somebody who can get out into the public and make fun of Trump, get people
Kamala Harris.
Trump. Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
I think
she's a street fighter.
Trump's game plan is going to be to pick the enemy. And he probably doesn't want the enemy to be Biden or the VP. He wants it to be China or immigrants. But whoever it is, he's going to pick the enemy. And he's going to try to set the narrative of the election around the enemy of his choice, which in his view will most likely get his base to stay collective together.
And the irony of that is that the real enemy, obviously, is COVID. And he's not even talking about that right now.
He's not going to pick COVID. He's definitely not picking COVID.
No, he won't.
No, but COVID is picking him.
Remember, we've seen Trump's playbook already, and what you're talking about is just pulling another rusty arrow out of the quiver. And as I agree with Steve, Trump is out of bullets. Trump's out of arrows. He's been out of arrows for several weeks. He's not even being taken seriously by his own party. People are, especially in the Senate, are feeling more and more emboldened to just work around him, and that does not augur well.
He might be out of
people in. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brent.
No, I was just gonna say he might be out of bullets or arrows and all that. That's when he takes out the flame torches and the Molotov cocktails, because he's not going down. He's not going to go down without taking everybody else down with him. That's why those Republican guys that are running for senator, they're in a no-win situation, because he's not going to, for the good of the party, I will release you to. Are you kidding me? He's going to take everyone down with him. So
okay,
it's either.
This is exactly right. This is right. This is right. Think about what the dynamic of that really is. What is it that he's going to come up with that's going to be any more outrageous or stupid than what he's already done? I mean, just imagine what it is that you think is that he's got, that he's going to try and stir this up. The problem that he has is the one that you just defined, which is that the people that are running for these key Senate seats, and this basically is the one audience of this dynamic is McConnell, because if McConnell becomes ex-majority leader, the whole Republican Party is going to basically have to reboot.
But see, Trump doesn't care about that. He doesn't care at all about that.
I'll tell you what he comes. And here's what he comes up with, though. Russia creates a vaccine. Putin gives the vaccine to Trump the week before the election.
And dies.
He takes it. No, he takes it, survives, and distributes it 1 week before the election.
Well, yeah,
Impossible.
The news
Guys,
this morning
guys,
is
Game
guys,
over.
the news this morning is that
here.
Russia is distributing a
Okay,
vaccine
so
without a phase 3 test.
You're
Yes.
you're illustrating my point, which is there's nothing he's going to come up with, at least on a betting level, that's going to have much more impact than what he's already doing. His playbook, he's been sticking to it. He has not tacked toward the center like everybody thought beginning in 2015.
I didn't think.
He's who he is. So but the interesting dynamic is if in order to protect McConnell's majority, McConnell basically forces a vote on relief in the Senate that comes closer to what the Democrats have been insisting on. That's going to make it really difficult for Trump to do anything draconian while he's trying to fight off his own internal Republican revolt. As these guys come down to their future being at stake in this election, Trump has less and less room to maneuver, not more.
Yeah,
Steve, why do you think this week, why did he sign that executive order for $400 and insist that states should match it when the Republican states are the least likely to want to do that and the Democrats the most likely to want to do it? What's his game there? What was that play all about?
The game is that he's trying to steal money from the hurricane budget to give to some people so that he has it as a talking point. And what he's really trying to do is to force the Republicans to come to the table to negotiate something, because his whole plan is based on illegal constructs that don't make any sense. He's just trying to force a deal. You're showing the fact
Karen
that
Bass.
sources say Karen Bass is not the nominee.
So he's getting close to making the announcement if this is starting to leak out.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Listen,
calling everybody to say, well, I'm going to wait for my call because I don't think I'm the nominee either.
Yeah, no, me neither. But look, it's a great thing that he said that the flu virus of he said 1817, I think.
No, he said 1917, and then he said
1917
it
ended the
disrupted
war.
World War II.
Yeah. So he was wrong in both counts.
Well, that's the funny thing about his brain. He once he gets something in there, it won't come out. He's been saying the 1917 flu forever, and he's corrected every time. And
I know someone like that. Steve, what's the name of that software you used to edit with?
Lumatech. Lumasoft.
Soft is not one of them.
See, that's he could get away with that kind of stuff by being completely wrong and repeating it in the small business world that he lived in, because he was big enough to control the narrative there.
Yeah.
You can't. How do you control the narrative for the world when you're just dead wrong on almost everything?
Wasn't there a story? I think it was the Washington Post yesterday that had this great headline that was how is it that America hasn't figured this out yet?
Not bad, wasn't it?
It was an op-ed. It was. I mean,
So
we're asking ourselves that question a lot these days, aren't we?
Well, I do want to make.
Abrams
I want
not the nominee.
I want to
Stacey
make
Abrams is not the nominee.
Are you reading the New York Times or?
Is
No,
this on Twitter?
we have this thing called the internet.
Oh, shut up! Oh, shut up! You're looking at it on TikTok, right?
I don't have a TikTok account. Do you?
Yes, I do. All right, hold on.
I was gonna just make a confession, which is the one bit of Trump that actually makes sense to me is his gut feeling that the NATO alliance is irrelevant and out of date. and that the world is now not the world in which NATO was born, and the alliances are not necessarily the alliances. So I actually kind of liked his questioning of that, even though I hate everything else about him.
Breaking news. Breaking news. Yasser Ali at the New York Magazine is saying that Kamala Harris is the pick. That's what
makes sense.
I reckon he's guessing. Or she. I don't know if it's he or she.
New York
Breaking
Times
Kamala.
eliminated Gretchen Whitmer. Oh,
You're starting to see it. Kamala.
This is funny how this is coming out one name at a time.
it's like when they announce the winners of a beauty contest. They start with the lowest runner-up, and they work their way up to the one who wins.
Let me know when
Okay,
Sarah
NBC
Palin gets
News.
eliminated.
What's
NBC
that?
News calls it.
There you go.
Who calls it?
NBC News.
Okay.
Ah,
All right.
well, there it is.
So who,
Now we can move on.
Woo! All
well,
right,
we did
now-
have this early in the show. Who was it that told us it would be Kamala because she's a street fighter? Was that you?
That was me. That was me and Dennis, but actually both of us.
That's right.
Right.
I called the ham sandwich. I was totally wrong. So sorry. about that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Remember, guys, I just want to say one thing. Trump is out of bullets. His model for the rest of this campaign is the Alamo. Maybe Custer's last stand. But
Kamala Harris.
He's
they
going-
just announced
he's going down.
Absolutely. I mean, it's astonishing how nothing he's tried this year has landed.
He
Nothing.
lost the Midas touch.
Well,
All right, so
it's also the fact that the hate that was there for Hillary Clinton is not there for anybody else.
Right.
We're getting it live on.
So this is the function of who's not the VP, not who is, and I think that's emblematic of what's going on with the calendar. I mean, today is Tuesday. Next Monday is the beginning of the Democratic convention. I believe the following week is early voting begins, and I think there's your narrative right there.
Yeah, there's going to be this movement now, decidedly for a short period of time. I would hope it would be a longer period of time. But as we go into next week and as we get closer to the Democratic convention, it is the street fighter, and I think that's there's Dana Bash
Who's
right now
street
on
fighter?
CNN. Kamala Harris.
Who's the Street Fighter? Oh,
Harris.
Well,
There's
The biggest
It's about
knock on Kamala Harris was coming from some sources, I should say, is that she's a cop. And I don't see how Trump is going to be able to attack her for being a cop.
no, he I think one of the very interesting things is he has to somehow be careful about how he goes after her at all. He will.
By the way,
but go ahead.
we could attack her for being a cop, however.
by the way, what, Keith?
I said we could attack her for being a cop, however. We
The left has been doing that, yes. But
Yeah, they have, but let's face it.
I saw it.
Black women are going to line up on this one. They're going to be excited about this.
Yeah,
The momentum
yeah.
is
So,
just up.
My wife just
about it.
my wife just came running into the room with a giant yay kind of thing going, and I think that's I think that's going to be what's going to happen. And it's going to, maybe it will last for more than a week. I sure hope so.
Yes,
What do you-
remember
the initial will last for a week, but then she gets out there and she starts talking and she keeps hammering and she keeps putting that needle into him. That's not
Yeah.
going to
Exactly
stop
it.
after a week.
Yes, and let's wait for the vice presidential debate. I cannot wait for that.
But what do you think the odds are that she ends up as president, if not within the next 4 years, within the next 8?
Pretty high.
Good, pretty high.
Another news flash: TikTok has just endorsed the Biden-Harris campaign.
See, I knew it would come back around to the TikTok thing.
You've
Did it say?
You've destroyed
was it-
our viewers' trust in us.
and Brent, was the message "ni hao"?
It was
So, you
delivered
know,
by the
shit,
mail.
shit.
There's a little thing going on here that I've heard now from the women in the room, which is yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the last thing that reminds me of, yeah, if you can not cough yourself to death.
Really COVID.
She's very excited. That's okay. No.
Yeah.
But
My wife
reminds
is on
me
a
of
conference
the,
call right now.
it reminds me of the march on Washington the day after the inauguration. You know, there was an energy there.
I just DM'd a female friend of mine, and she literally said, "I'm nearly in tears." So there's a lot more to this than what guys, even us guys, are representing here, I think. And
I
TikTok,
think
There's no doubt about it. I feel like I need to go in the other room, tell my wife to take her voice down, because she's on the phone with like 5 people at the same time talking about this story. This is a big deal.
Well, everybody's on the phone with about 5 people right now.
Well, we certainly are. Yeah.
well, I'm about to
Okay.
check in on my 89-year-old
Yeah.
mother. I'm sure she's going to be extremely excited about this.
So, Brent, since you're the only one that still thinks that Trump has a chance, how is this affected by the Kamala Harris announcement?
Well, like I said, there's going to be definite increase in energy and excitement for Biden, but I guess that increases votes. But I just think that the people who hate Trump are already on board, and and maybe this just gives them more energy to get to the polls or put that absentee ballot into the mailbox, and hopefully it gets there in time, because what's going on.
Well, I think you raised a good point there, which is that the Trump attack on voting by mail is going to be damaged significantly by this announcement.
How so?
Because it's going to be, it's going to be like, yeah. Well, we're going to vote, and you're going to get that through the Supreme Court and outlaw voting by mail. No, you're not. So please be quiet.
Well, he's not going to outlaw voting by mail. He's going to sabotage it, which is a little bit different.
Try. He's going to try. But my point would be that anything that he does like that, or that the Republican Party does like that, is going to essentially be attacked by the people in the campaign, and therefore become a rallying point for getting the early vote out.
Has there been enough of that?
Vote election.
What you're talking about, Steve, has there been enough of that kind of outrage about the story of the new Postmaster General and what he's done to the Postal Service, and how that, and it's almost like right in front of our eyes.
There has been, Frank, quite a lot of TV coverage about that, but it's a sideshow. It's a minor bullet point in the big picture on the news. It's not the main thrust.
Do we not think that it's very important?
It is important. I see a huge amount of outrage on Twitter, but I'm tuned into, a piece of Twitter that's bound to be outraged by that stuff. So I don't know in general how much outrage.
I mean, every bit of voter suppression that goes on some of it will be successful, but the Democratic and independent vote that is going to tip strongly to the Democrats should be enough to survive the suppression tactics. That's really the question here. There are more Democrats and left-leaning independents than there are Republicans. Period.
So what you're saying then is that the 7 points that we're seeing right now will hold and will be enough, even in the Electoral College.
I think it'll go down to 3 to 5, but that's not a landslide, but it's a significant majority.
Well, how many states does he need in the Electoral College? It's only about 2 or 3 states that he needs to swing states that he needs to get in order to lock the electoral college for him?
Yeah, but he's losing all of them.
Michigan is pretty much
Well, yeah,
gone.
but I mean, I don't
They
believe
pulled their
that.
ad money out of Michigan.
Yeah, so he doesn't hold Michigan, but does he win Nevada, for example? Probably.
Probably.
At this
Arizona's the question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Florida's
Arizona.
the
and
question.
Florida, which have NBC, I believe it is, put Arizona, Florida, and one other state,
North Carolina?
as blue. North Carolina, correct. And I wouldn't put any money on Florida being a blue state.
Think of it this
Not-
way. Think of it
not
this
right
way.
now.
Is there any state that Hillary won that Trump is going to win back?
Well, they were hoping for Minnesota, but that's looking kind of ominous. And I think they said New Hampshire would be the only other possible one.
Yeah, that's not going to
And
happen.
then you've got, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, which are
They're
not,
not looking
going to
good
stay
for
in
him
the
right now.
Trump category this year.
Mhm.
So I don't see how he gets the Electoral College win. I could be wrong, but I don't see it.
So, Dennis, I misunderstood what you were saying. You were saying Trump does not win those electoral college states. You're saying that they swing blue.
That's right.
I'm saying this. I'm
The
saying
three,
this.
the three
If you look at
states,
the-
the three
if you look
states
at
in the
polling,
traditional blue wall that flipped
Hang on a sec. I couldn't hear Dennis. Could you answer, Dennis?
if you look at the polling in the swing states, especially the swing states that Trump won last time, he's down single digits, but high single digits in all of them. He's got a problem. This is turning into the Alamo for him. And the other thing I'd like to say is that if you think about voter suppression, tactically he's got a big problem because there's no way to tell what's in the envelope. If you slow down delivery of envelopes, you're slowing down delivery of Republican envelopes as much as you're slowing down Democratic envelopes. So as a consequence, he doesn't have the stranglehold in the Postal Service that he would hope for. And finally, let me just say that the richest man in the world could easily volunteer to deliver all the ballots for free.
Yeah, we mentioned that last week.
His buddy?
I heard there was some reporting that kind of belied the conventional wisdom that Republicans are hurt by mail-in voting. In fact, Republicans are actually strong when it comes to mail-in voting. So that adds a lot of credence to what you just said. I have a question though that I'd like to, if you don't mind, Steve, to throw out to the group,
Hey,
and that is,
it's been only a week since you took the show over, so please,
you invite. Do we think that there is a real possibility that Biden hurts himself in the debates?
Yes.
Yes.
Biden is not, he's old. He forgets things. He says the wrong thing, politically incorrect things by accident. I mean, he's not a great candidate. He's just. But as Brent said, a ham sandwich could win. So it doesn't matter. But yes.
But Biden was gaffe prone when he was like 30. I mean, this is nothing new. Maybe they come more frequently now. But yeah, he could say some stupid stuff. But I
agree with Brent on that. I agree with that, Brent, because it's all priced into what people think about Biden.
That's
yeah,
right.
and he's indemnified by the torrent of bullshit coming from Trump.
Well, not
It's
only
like,
that,
so he made a mistake. Okay, and the other guy just lied 12 times.
So the answer then is yes, but it doesn't really matter.
That's
I don't think it's meaningful to the margin.
Yeah.
The only thing that could shift is if some major event that people care about becomes contested between them and Trump is on the right side of it, which is very unlikely.
Okay.
I can't even think of what that might be.
Like it's a wild card, like the stuff going on in Lebanon, could suddenly blow up into a big global.
Well, even that's a great example of when that happened. He was out there saying, well, I heard from some of the generals that
it was a bomb.
Yeah, like nobody told him that. But the funny thing about it is nobody even made a big deal of it because they knew he was lying. So life just went on like, oh, yeah, that's what he said. All right, moving right along.
Let's imagine that we're his strategy team. Okay, so we're Team Trump just for a nanosecond. It isn't COVID. It isn't Lebanon. It isn't immigrants anymore. Been there, done that. It probably isn't China, not a big enough issue. So you get down to health, education, and taxes.
Unemployment.
So what could he do? What would we advise him to do? It would have to be something really major, along the lines of the New Deal or something big.
Right, and that's why I brought up the idea. He has not tacked toward the center, and he's not going to start now.
No, and even if he did, it still seems like it's too late.
I mean, the things that we know that are in his quiver are the American Carnage script that he ran before. He put Biden in, and black people are going to come into the suburbs, and whatever October surprise AG Barr is cooking up with Durham.
Yeah. By the way, I got to the suburbs early.
There's going to be an October surprise from the Dems as well, or Dem affiliates. I mean, look at the Lincoln Project. I mean, all you got to do is replay the Lincoln Project's Morning in America a few times, and that'll get a lot of people thinking. If you don't get some kind of economic stimulus package, you're going to have riots before Election Day.
Well, look at Chicago. Look what's going on in Chicago.
Yeah, in Portland still.
We'll start doubling down on that now too.
I think we have to give Trump his due in order to be able to defeat him. And I think that the announcements about the executive orders, I think, are actually pretty effective at pulling the Republican Party back toward making a deal. I think it's going to.
You mean an embarrassment?
Not this week. He's going to need to do this next week, most likely, because these Senate races are going to start coming into play as people realize that everything is running out of time. And, just because, Graham and his opponent are tied doesn't mean that Graham's going to lose, but they're going to have to, it's part of a narrative, which is that maybe not there, but elsewhere, like Susan Collins, or elsewhere like Corey, what's his name?
Gardner.
Yeah. They're going to be coming down to having basically one vote as a margin between McConnell losing control. If McConnell loses control of the Senate, he loses control of the agenda, and they're going to keep, even if Trump wins, they're going to keep, the Republicans, on the mat for however long it takes before an impeachment clears to the point where he has to get out of office. I don't think any of that will happen. I think he's going to lose.
I think the most fascinating part of that is, does Mitch McConnell finally say, all right, we're cutting bait. This guy is not going to save us. We got to save ourselves. You guys got to do what you got to do in order to win.
He's already done that. He's already done that to some extent.
But it's like behind the scene. He's got to come out strong, because if he doesn't come out strong, these guys are still going to be fearing Trump. So if he's like meek and mild, by the way, guys, do what you. That's not going to work. He's got to be like full-throated.
That's the Joe Scarborough. That's the Joe Scarborough wing of the Republican Party point of view. It's like, this guy should be taken out at the knees, and we should reclaim the Republican Party. And
but that ain't going to happen.
The Lincoln guys are the Lincoln Alliance, what's it called? The Lincoln Project guys are part of that. There is definitely going to be a revolution. The timing is the only unknown. Do they do it now or do they do it after the election when he's lost? But they are going to try to take back the Republican Party.
I don't think it's
not
possible for them to do it before the election.
That's correct.
You know, after the debacle, they can come in and sweep up the pieces. They can't do it in advance and say, you know, if we don't do it now, we'll have to do it later. That won't work.
The Lincoln Project had to change the name from Never Trumper to something else because Never Trumper is a loser politically. In the midst of all of this hemorrhaging of his support, he's won several primaries for candidates he's endorsed. He is very strong politically in his base.
Yeah,
That was a great rebrand.
Let's not forget that and we've toyed with the conversation a little bit about the fact that we're coming up on the two conventions. What is going to happen in these newly reimagined conventions, these virtual conventions? What will these two candidates say in their acceptance speeches that also might pivot the conversation? I mean, look, we just had the biggest pivot in the conversation 10 minutes ago. That will be what everyone talks about for a week. Next week, or is it next week or the week after when the Democrats have their convention, there will be a moment where Biden will have his chance to say something to either continue to progress that conversation forward or to pivot it to something else. I don't think he's going to pivot it to something else. I think he's just going to continue to move it forward. And
You're going to have an accelerant, not a pivot.
Yeah, an accelerant. You're absolutely right. And he has been the voice of calm in the COVID crisis throughout. And as long as that is, this is my opinion, as long as that is sort of top of mind on everybody's mind, if you know, even unemployment and health care and all of those other things, maybe health care, unemployment, COVID is still a big national issue. And he is the leader of that big national issue. And he can play that.
So the way I think of it is, if you split the electorate into 1/3 who will not vote, and then the rest 40-60 Biden Trump, of the 60% Biden, about half of them are like us, where the overriding narrative just doesn't give you anything else to do but to vote for Biden. But I think the other half care about the issues. So I think, you know, Kamala Harris's point of view on health, on student loans, all of those things are going to be cared about by roughly half of the Biden voters. So they still have to develop policy.
So here's the Lincoln Project visual about the fundamental campaign issue, which is healthcare. They're going to run John McCain doing his thumbs down in the Senate over and over again. That is the election right there. And what they're going to do is focus on the Senate races.
Yeah, but the people I'm talking about won't care about that. They're going to want to know how their life is going to be. You know, they're not intellectual. They're about day-to-day life. So
but I think you're right about you're right about that, Keith. And I think that's the space that Kamala Harris fills.
Now, I wouldn't overstate Kamala Harris's choice specifically. I think that any of the finalists would have given him this. Kamala will give some pluses in terms of energy and an edge in terms of attacking Bill Barr, as she's done in Senate hearings and things like that. So there's going to be some legitimacy there. She's also going to bring some negatives that are going to it won't be a wash, but the real race is about, as Keith is saying, the real race is about what is the fundamental issue. And I agree with Frank as well, or whoever said it, which is that the underlying dynamic of this election is the crisis, the COVID crisis. That is dominant, and that's a healthcare issue. So whoever wins the healthcare issue, if the people look up and they say, "Oh, Trump's going to do a pre-existing conditions," really? Here's the shot of John McCain, and how can he fight? How can Trump legitimately fight off McCain? He'll just lose more and more support among older voters, particularly male in the military.
Well, but then
Trump's
Steve,
embrace of pre-existing conditions is ludicrous on its face. There's no way you can afford to do that without the whole rest of the ACA formula. If you just try and ensure pre-existing conditions, you're either going to have to raise your premiums, or you're going to have to cut your benefits to the point that you have junk policies. It's going to be the Trump University of healthcare. It's just flim-flam.
And
the other thing is what
on MSNBC, I think it was on, might have been Andrea Mitchell, but they actually had an interview with a guy who voted for Trump, who was dead set against the ACA, who lost his job, got cancer, and discovered the importance of the ACA and signed up for it. If they can find one guy like that, they can find 100. And that, I think, would be what fits or feeds into Steve's narrative. It's going to be real people confronting real problems.
And the other thing, going back to the bills that Trump signed at Bedminster, is the payroll tax situation that puts Medicare and Medicaid in jeopardy, which is another personal issue and an important one. And so, especially when he says that he comes back on the other side of the election and continues that defunds, and then the fact that it's still being looked at as an entitlement when it's something that we pay for. So that makes it not an entitlement in my mind.
Well, but they perverted the meaning of entitlement. We're entitled to it because we paid for it. I don't know what they mean by the word entitled to it. Of course, I'm entitled to it. If I pay you the money for a car, I'm entitled to get the car. And
by the way, and if you don't test, there won't be as many cases.
That's like when you have a 1-year-old and you say, "I'm hiding."
I mean, the preemptive medicine is the hallmark of ACA. It's like, we're going to encourage you to do things to prevent the occurrence of medical disruption and ruin. That is the exact opposite of what the Trump campaign is doing.
We don't have any of those issues here in the UK. Look at Keith, that smile.
I have a friend in the UK who has cancer, and she can't even get a test back because they prioritize COVID over everything.
Yeah.
Oh, it sucks.
All right, so let's have a snap poll and go off and celebrate. I almost am ready to start drinking again.
Yeah.
You picked the wrong time to quit drinking, huh?
The terrible time to quit sniffing glue.
Yeah, the glue shortage has really impacted.
Yeah.
All right,
Frau Blucher.
So, Frank, what's the poll?
What was the question?
I at the beginning of this show, I would have asked something about the Bedminster signings. That would have been the poll. Right now, I just think that the story of Kamala Harris is just so big. There is no poll.
I disagree. So you're now fired.
Okay.
I'm taking the show over. I'll take it back. All right, we're going to
Take
do a
it
poll
back.
about TikTok. Is Microsoft or some other company going to be able to buy TikTok before September 15th?
Yes, but not all of it. Only the American part of it, and it might not be Microsoft. It might be Twitter.
Okay, so you're saying that somebody's going to be able to do that successfully. Dennis, what do you think?
I think there's too much money involved, and I think with Trump putting his thumb on the scale, it is an incredibly risky proposition. I think a lot of people are going to walk on it. They're going to walk away from it.
Keith?
I think the answer is no, and that TikTok will stay independent and Trump won't be able to shut them down.
Michael?
By September 15th, absolutely not. Ever? Maybe.
Brent?
September 15th is a little over a month away.
Well, that's what
it'll happen.
the deadline is. According to
Yeah.
Trump, the deadline is September
Yeah.
15th. 45 days, I believe is what he said.
I just don't think they can. If that deadline stays, I don't think it happens. And I think it's probably good for TikTok if it doesn't. Because if they get bought, I just have the suspicion that their best days, they will have seen their best days if they get bought by some kind of corporate entity that, people are going to, like the kids that love TikTok, they're probably going to run in droves once it becomes a corporate entity. So I don't know.
They'll go somewhere.
Okay, and everybody's voted, right? So
You did.
it's essentially 3-3 right now, or wait, one.
No, it's 1-1 against
Yeah.
everyone else.
No, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you think the deal's going to happen.
By the 15th?
Yeah.
So it's
Just
me.
one.
It's me. Just one. What about you?
Okay. I'm about to. If I don't have a swing vote, then I'm not going to say anything.
Okay, Mr. Vice President.
I think that there are several. I think that there are.
What about
several-
Tina?
Yeah, she's in my back pocket, so I told her to do it. She does it.
Whoa!
We all know. We all know
We're
that.
I'm
gonna
gonna pay
put
for
the
that,
showdown right now.
By August
We all-
15th, I'm out of here. All right, so-
Tina, Steve just
Time
lost
to
all
sign off, I
credibility.
think. Time to sign
Yeah,
off.
I want the show back.
Well, good luck. You wasted your time talking about, well, it's all about Kamala Harris. I mean, duh. Come on, this is show business.
By the way,
Yeah.
since we actually did this show in real time of this announcement, it kind of puts you on the spot to get this show out as quickly as you possibly can.
You think?
We'll find out. I think that I think enough people are, of the 50 people that are watching this, there are enough of them that will be interested to see whether we knew what we were talking about in a week.
That's what you hope.
Well, go back and look at our predictions. I think Kamala Harris was at one point was the prediction, but the Florida lady was also there once as well.
Yeah, Val Demings
Val
got.
Demings.
Yep.
She slipped in there.
Well,
Yeah, and
I have to say, I always said it was going to be Kamala Harris. You can go back and watch all the old shows. Always.
So again, the poll, I think that there's more than one vote for no. How many no's are there?
There was more than one vote. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
there was.
so
For
raise
the
your hand if
15th.
The answer's no.
Yeah,
By
there
the
were
15th,
4.
no.
Yeah, everyone
Okay,
everyone
so
else.
it's 3, and there are 3 other left. So I'll tie it up by saying, does that make sense? No.
There's 4 anyway, Steve.
I think there's a good chance that the Twitter is the victor here, not in terms of acquiring them because they don't have any money, but in terms of the fact that, as somebody said early on in the show, Twitter and text are beloved by people who are trying to find out some information as quickly as possible. Watching videos in order to get information is kind of like reading cartoons to get information.
Or
I think the
listening.
winner
to
is
books.
whoever doesn't have
So
to.
I think that TikTok is going to do just fine, because I don't think that whoever said that that Trump, I think it was Keith, that Trump doesn't have the power to actually do any of this. It's all just stage managing to try and distract people from the fact that he's in a real hole. So I think that TikTok will be acquired.
5
So
to
is that
15.
3-3?
Oh, it's
No,
2 to 4. And what is the kitty vote?
She votes with her belly.
In her tail.
Okay. Thanks to Denis Pombriant. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Keith Teare. Thank you, sir.
I'm
It's good to
pleased
see
to
you.
be here on my iPad.
Yeah, it worked out quite nicely, even though they should put the camera at the top of the middle, not on
It's
the
over
side.
there, the camera. It's ridiculous.
I know it's annoying, but this show, by the way, is now produced almost entirely in post-production on the iPad Pro with Lumatech and
I was going to say, does Tim Apple get? Are you getting an endorsement deal from Tim Apple or something by saying that?
I've been saying this for years, and it's all because Michael Markman has brainwashed me into thinking that Apple is the smartest company.
Steve uses the iPad even when the Mac would have been a better choice. He's a dogmatist for his platform.
Well, I'm just trying to, model the new normal today rather than waiting for a year.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Thanks to Michael Markman.
Thank you.
Brent Leary, I think we've seen a subtle shift in your opinion about the election.
Nope.
I know you won't be pinned down to that effect.
He's still
You're
got
resolute.
he's going to try to take us all down. Chaos will reign for I don't know how long. We'll see.
And then you'll
Foam the
lose.
runway. Foam the runway.
Frank Radice, did I say thank you?
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'd like to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor.
Yay.
Okay.
And we all know that she has you in her back pocket, by the way.
Yeah.
No kidding. And thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time, because there's going to be a next time. Bye-bye.